podcast. It's your girl, Veronica.
And your other girl, Alessia.
And as you guys can probably see from the title, I'm leaving the podcast. So this is something that we had decided, I want to say like a month and a half ago.
Don't we us in this.
No, but I'm saying something that we, like, that's been decided like a month and a half ago, I want to say.
Yeah.
So this is something that's been like happening. We both went on our respective trips. But like, obviously, as you can see, there's no bad blood. Like, we'll get into like the reasons why. I'm not going to be continuing.
Say everything you want to say. I'll jump in at some point, I guess. But you could keep going.
I guess I'll keep going.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Should I pull out my notepad? Okay, well, I guess I'll just give you guys all an explanation of why this is happening. Because I'm sure you guys are like, what the fuck? This comes out of nowhere. Obviously, there's nothing that happened. There was no... it was no color daddy situation. I know our whole career people have been wanting to, relate us to color daddy, but it's no color daddy situation. I'm just going to be like 100% honest with you guys on, what's been happening, what's been going on. There's multiple reasons but it all falls into one thing. But to start off, I would say like I spoke with this about you. It's been like quite a while. I want to say like, I don't want to give it a timeline, but it's been a while that I haven't been like invested in the podcast. Like I've been on kind of, when you're on that like automatic mode where you're just like doing stuff out of like habit and like, this is what I do. Like, I do the gym on Tuesdays and you just do it every time because that's what you do. I feel like the podcast kind of became like that for me, where I was just like, we shoot it. I do my job. I put it up and that's what it's been. So I feel like I kind of lost the like love for it and like the excitement for it. For many reasons. I had a lot going on, just a lot of things happening, especially with the podcast too. Like there was certain things that were like weighing on me, like mentally, and just, I wasn't having fun doing it anymore. And I just felt like I didn't love doing it. Like I actually felt like when I would do it, it felt like I didn't feel good. I didn't feel like happy. Every time we would film something, like I was always like not happy with what I was saying, not happy with the way it came out, not happy with the way it turned out. And then like seeing people commenting, obviously, this isn't because of any negative comments or anything, but I think everything plays a role. And I think for so long, when you're working on something for so long, putting your all into it and like not getting that much in return, but like getting so much negativity and being always kind of like misconstrued, or like it felt like everything I was saying, people were going to take it wrong. So then I would come on the podcast and I would try to say things in a way where it was so clear for people to understand, and I would still be taken out of context. I would still be misconstrued. People would still come after me. And I just felt like I don't feel good. I feel like it's not who I want to be in a way. Like it didn't feel like my best self. And so like, I just think in that I kind of like slowly detached myself from it, and I was just not giving it my all anymore. And the truth is, for something to succeed, people need to be in a relationship, in a business, like anyone involved has to be giving their 100%. And so for the longest time, I don't feel like I've been giving my 100%. I feel like I've just been giving like whatever it was needed to get by. And don't get me wrong, I still had fun doing it. I still like came on and I laughed and it was great, but it just wasn't like fulfilling me the way that it used to. And I just kept doing it because in my mind, it felt like a marriage. So like I feel like, how people always say like a business is like a relationship, blah, blah, blah. Like it's actually, I swear, the only thing that I can relate it to is like feeling like you're in a marriage, where it's not as easy as like when you're with a partner where you could just be like, okay, this isn't working out, like let's break up. With a podcast or like a business, it's like we're bound together by like contracts, by money. Like there's like, it's really like a marriage. It's not that easy to be like, hey, I decided I don't want to do this anymore, because someone's whole like life and like money and all these things that are like attached to it, like that all matters. And it's not as easy to just walk away from. So for the longest time in my head, I never gave myself the option to be like, I can move on from this. I was always like, this is what I have to do. And like, there's no choice. Like you could have told me like, oh, would you end the like, would you stop being a part of the podcast? I'd be like, no, like I can't. Like in my head, I couldn't. Mm-hmm. And I think that probably plays a role too in why I wasn't happy anymore, because I feel like when you feel like you need to do something, it takes away like the excitement of it. And so for the longest time, I wasn't happy, but I was still pushing myself to do it because I felt like I had no choice. And then, obviously I had other things going on. I had my show going on, and then I was kind of in the middle, and I was like putting time into both of them. And the truth is, like, putting time into both of them is never going to make either of them succeed. And in my head, I was just like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this until something happens, right? But over time, I just realized, like, I'm worrying about everyone else and, like, keeping, like, not keeping you happy, but it's like I'm worrying about you in this situation. Like, I can't just leave because it affects you and all this stuff. So, and we're like tied in together, and like I'm worrying about all these things. But the truth is, like, not being happy in something, not being 100%, and also doing something for someone else is never doing it for them. Like, it's always, you're actually fucking that person over.
Yeah.
Because you're not, it's like a relationship that you don't want to be in, but you're staying because you're scared to hurt the other person. You're always doing them a disservice.
So as you guys know, this episode, we're talking about how Veronica's leaving the podcast. So our sponsor still stays the same, Veronica. So sorry for you. So now I think it's time you give me back all your every jewels, because when a relationship ends, the jewelry gets taken back.
Really? Because I'm still wearing my ex's necklace. So I'm pretty sure we said on this podcast that we could keep the jewelry. So,
right. But like my
rule
rule of thumb was like, if it's close to the heart, then you shouldn't be wearing it. And you're wearing the every jewel's heart.
I'm with the heart, but we left on good terms, so it's fine.
Absolutely.
And guys, you know, if you want a little remembrance of the podcast, head on to Every Jewels. Use our discount code.
Head on to Every Jewels so you could be reminded of a breakup.
Exactly. Use our discount code Chemical X at checkout, and you'll receive 15% off your entire order.
20.
It's not my job. It's not my job to do this part.
You could tell she's checked out. Well, I'll continue from here. So guys, head on to Every Jewels and use our discount code Chemical X at checkout to receive 20% off your entire order. And Veronica, we'd be so upset at you if you ever gave back your jewelry, because as two people on this podcast would say, you don't give back designer bags. You don't give back shit. What's yours is yours, and what's his is yours.
And I think for so long, I thought I was like doing what I needed to do and doing the right thing. But I think I just realized, like, I came to like a breaking point where I was just like, what do I want for my life? Is this aligning now with what I want for my life? Does this make sense for what I have going in my life now? And like, am I just waiting for something else to make this decision for me so that it doesn't have to come from me? And like, I felt like I was. And that's where I was like, okay, I feel like this isn't fair anymore. And in my head, I was just like, I know what I need to do, because it's not fair to wait to be like, oh, look, this happened and like now we can't continue. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't give you the chance that you deserve. And I think in my head, I always think I'm doing things for other people, but it tends to not be. Like, that's the thing about people pleasing. You always think it's like, oh, I'm like, I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to like fuck them over. But the truth is, like, when you do what you want to do, you're giving the other person the opportunity to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You want to talk? Because I'm out of breath.
I know. I was like, agree with everything you said. We finished podcasting, and then I was talking to you about boy stuff, and I was kind of like not even in your room. Like, I was like leaving. I had my shoes on my bag, like my jacket. I was leaving.
Alessia's the type of person also to be talking as she's walking down the stairs. So it's like, when you
no
want to say something, you're like back.
And I'm not in your room at this point, but you're sitting on your bed.
Yeah.
And you're like, I actually like want to talk to you about something. And I was like, I got the vibe that it's like you weren't going to do it then, but you actually just decided to do it then. I don't know. What were you planning on doing the day you were?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I didn't get that vibe. I guess it's because I was on my way out and I was like, you never said like, hey, I want to talk to you. So I had my jacket on. You're probably like, when do I say this?
I was. So like I said, it was something that I felt for so long, but never felt I had the opportunity to do it. So it never even something that came to mind, like I could do this. And then one day before I told you was like the day of like my epiphany. And like, I'm the type of person where it takes me really long to make a decision. But once I make a decision, it's like, it's set, it's final. Like, I can't go back on it. And I also feel like I need to tell you, you know what I mean? Like, when I make a decision, it's like I can't even go a second longer. It's like in a relationship too. It's like if I decide we're over, it's like I can't go a second longer in this relationship. You know? So I decided the day before, and like right away, immediately as I came to that realization, I was like, I need to tell you as soon as possible. And I couldn't like. So it's funny because one of our friends had told you, like, you're acting as if you're going through a breakup. And when I tell you guys, this was the biggest breakup of my life. That's what it felt like. Yeah. Even the day before, I had to tell you, I had so much anxiety. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was like nauseous, panicking because I was like, I don't know what you're going to say. Like, I don't know how you're going to take this. You know what I mean?
Okay, so this is where I was confused. So I'll like bring you guys back a little bit, but we did like a questions of the week. You know, sometimes we do like Q&A, like ask us anything and then we'll answer. And then a random fan said the podcast is breaking up.
No, a random fan said, is the podcast ending?
Oh, yeah. Is the podcast... Yeah, so a random fan wrote, they wrote the podcast is ending.
No, they said, is the podcast ending? Because he sent it to me again.
Okay,
on another thing.
So whatever, we had both posted our own stories, and that person had wrote it to me and to you. But at that point, you didn't see it on your end. But I saw it on mine, and we were all chilling and drinking. It was me, you, and our friend Mirko that you've seen on the podcast. We're gonna bring in characters, and I remember being like, "What the fuck?" And then showing you, and you're like, "What the fuck? Like, who said that? Like." What? And I was like, "Oh, like this is not true." And you're like, "No, like this is not true."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "I wonder if I got it." So then you went to check and you're like, "Yeah, I got it too."
Yeah.
And this was like, I want to say less than a week after when you gave me the news. A week before you gave me the news. So like, that's where I was like, okay, well, when you're like, I want to talk to you about something, obviously the worst things go through your mind when someone says, I want to talk to you about something.
100%.
But I'm like, I had this discussion with Veronica like a week ago. So there's no way it has to do with anything. There's no way it has anything to do with the podcast. And then you're like, I don't want to do the podcast anymore. Like, I'm not happy doing it. And this is not something I want for myself anymore. And I was like, I had so many emotions because I was just like, I felt like, you know, like when you're in a relationship and someone just ends it and you're like, I'm blindsided.
Yeah.
You know, because like, I don't feel like we ever had like a hostile environment where like we didn't feel like we can open up or like let each other know how we feel and where we're at. So I think for me, it's like we never had the stage of like, this is so much work for me. Like, I'm not happy doing this and like doing the trailers or doing certain things. Like, to give me, I guess, the opportunity to be like, okay, should we hire someone or should we fix it? Like, what are you unhappy doing? It literally straight up went from like, I'm not happy doing this to like any resort of fixing it. So I was like, is it like her parts she doesn't want to do? But like, if that was the case, then we could have obviously like figured out a solution. So I think for me, it was just confusing. It went from like 0 to 100 real quick. There was no like, I guess, negotiation for like, okay, what are you unhappy with? Is this fixable? It went straight from like, I'm doing this to I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
So that's where it was like crazy. And I remember I was like, well, obviously in shock. And I don't know how you expected me to act, but I was just like, I guess it's kind of like a relationship. You don't want someone to be doing something that they don't want to do. So if someone's saying, I'm not happy doing this, I don't love this anymore, it's like, as much as you want to be like, what do you mean? Like, let's fight for this. You know, it's like you can't fight for somebody who doesn't want it anymore and like is moving on from it. So I was just like, yeah, I understand. Like, obviously I'm in shock and obviously I'm like, what the fuck? My world is being turned around, turned upside down. But I was just kind of like in shock and I was like, yeah, cool. Like, I mean, if you're not happy doing it, then I guess, yeah, like we'll figure it out.
I think like it makes sense in your head, like your perspective of it. I think it was also like I said, like I never once was like, oh, I want to end this. I want to end this. It was just like a feeling that you know, sometimes, you know how they say like you live life backwards and it makes sense. It was kind of like that. It's like after everything happened, it's like I'm able to look back and be like, wow, like I can see how I wasn't in this as I used to be, but I was so in it and just like, so like, this is what I do, that I didn't ever take the time to like acknowledge like, this is how I'm feeling and this is why. It was just like, this is how I'm feeling, this is how I'm feeling, but I'm continuing to do it. And I never just like addressed it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I never gave myself the ability.
You didn't address it.
Yeah, but I'm saying like I never addressed it with myself is what I'm saying. And it's not that I didn't address it with you. It's I never like said it to myself and been like, is this something I want to continue doing? It was just like, no brainer. I have to continue doing this. So it's like, I know from your end, you're like, you didn't say anything, but it's, to me, it was like, there was nothing even to say because I didn't even think of it. Like, I was just like, this is what it is, you know? But obviously, like, I don't know. I didn't, anything could go any way. Like, I didn't know what you were going to say. I didn't know how it was going to happen. So like, I was obviously like stressing really hard about it, but I just think, like I said, when I make a decision, I'm like, this is it. And, you know, there was just so much involved. There were so many working parts. And I just felt like, I also had this like immense pressure where I was like, like I said, I was always like, well, we'll just see where it goes. We'll just see where it goes. Cause I'm kind of that person where I never want to make a decision.
Yeah.
But then
I feel
was
like that part definitely aggravated me a little bit, where I was like, I want to do this. I want to take it here. I want to travel. I want to go do that. And you're like, well, I can't because of my other job. And like, it started feeling like I was like, I wanted to like expand and like, it was just harder logistically with like different, I think automatically when you're doing a podcast with somebody else, it's like you have to factor in like your schedule, what you're able to do versus somebody else. So it's harder to just pick up and go and do things you want, because it's like we both have to approve it and we both have to be on board with it. So I think that there's gonna be pros and cons to this. Obviously, it's easier to shoot the shits with somebody you've known literally your whole life, and like you're able to just like have no topic and get on and like literally entertain everyone. But at the same time, like, are we growing? Are we getting out of like our comfort zone by just like continuing to do this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly. Well, that's my point. And I was just like, I felt like for a while now we were kind of like stagnant, and
I felt that too.
I don't feel like, I don't want to say like it's like, I think it was just like what had happened, but I also know that I played a role in that happening, because I wasn't, like you said, like I had other things going on. I had other jobs. I was always super busy. Like I didn't have the ability to be like, yeah, let's just go. Like even when we did our New York weekend, like it took so much planning and taking off and organizing in order for me to just do that. So I didn't have, like, I felt like what was needed in order to take it to the next level. And I also, because my energy wasn't there, I didn't, like, not only did I didn't have it, but I couldn't give it because my energy just wasn't there, you know? So I was just like, I don't even have the energy to try and make this, do the things I need to do in order to make this work. So I just felt like that. And I also felt like this is something, like, if I'm feeling this way now, why would I wait until like it does better and grows more to then like leave and put it in a worse situation? Do you know what I mean? It's like, at least now it's like we're at this point where we've really built like a great thing. We have a good thing going on, but it's like the next step is like, you know, growing it 10 times bigger. But I was just like, why would I wait until that happens in order to be like, oh, this is not something I want to continue doing, you know? Yeah. So I think just like the timing of everything fell into my lap, and all these things happened at once where I was just like, this is what I need to do and I need to do it now. You know what I mean? Like it just felt like I can't continue doing this. And like there's so many things like that.
I think when like I left your place, I was just in shock. Is this really happening? Is this a dream? You know what I mean? Because it's like, I feel like when we started, we both had the same vision of like wanting this to be huge. Like we're not going to stop until this gets to where it gets to. And like, if you watch old episodes, like that's the vibe of what you see. And I think it has changed maybe for you a little bit. And I remember you were like, Alessia, it's so weird that like I'm leaving the podcast, because I always thought it would be you. And I
wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that you said that, because like when I look at it from my perspective, I'm like, no, like how could you think that? Like I would never. So I'm like, I'm interested to like talk about that.
Well, it's funny because I'm not the only one who thought that. I feel like most people around me thought that you would be the one to leave.
But why?
Like, I don't know. I think it's just like I genuinely don't know why. I think it's just because I'm the kind of person where I commit to something and I like can't leave it. Like that's me. It's like I'll commit to something and I feel too bad to leave it, so I'll stay in it. So maybe that's why everyone just figured I would just continue until it dies, or like continue until I couldn't anymore. But yeah, no, I always thought that it was gonna be like in my head. I always thought like at one point you would go do something else that you kind of wanted to do more, or like that was more aligned with what you wanted to do.
That's interesting, because if we think back to the beginning and wanting to do this podcast, it was always me convincing you.
Yeah. So
it's crazy to think that like you would think it would be me leaving when I put a gun to your head and said, do the podcast with me.
Because I feel like it was like you wanted to do something creative and like in like entertainment, but like I don't feel like the podcast part of it was like your passion. So that's why I was just like, you love it and it's fun and it's great, but I felt like when you were gonna get something that was more like in what you've always been into, like reality shows or like something more like that area, I was always just like, well, in my head I was just like, well, it's a no-brainer, you're just gonna do that. But I didn't feel like any type of way about it. It was just like what I thought would it's what I thought was gonna happen. Like, we
Yeah.
would get big enough for you to do something that you kind of more so wanted to do.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that was my thing also, like,
Which is weird
I never
because
was
like the podcast is really what fulfilled me, and it's like once I started it, and then like once we started making money, I'm like, well, great, we can make 100, we can make 1,000, we can make 100,000. I was like, I'm doing something I love, I'm laughing, I enjoy the editing process so much. So I was like, there's no way I would ever let this go. So it's just interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. That's that's what I told you. I said I always thought it was gonna be you, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't love podcasting. It's not that I don't love coming and talking. Like, it's my favorite thing to do. I never shut the fuck up. But like, I think it was just how everything happened. I also think we started at a time, like, I mean, we started this podcast, almost 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And so much happens in 4 years. You change as a person. Like, so many things you go through. Like, I just feel like I'm at this point in my life where I'm really aware of how much time, how old I am, not how old I am, but like, how much time has passed, I guess I'm aware of, and like how I'm not where I want to be. And I just feel like I've done this thing where I'm like looking at every single piece of my life and I'm like, is this going to take me to where I want to be? And if it's not, and if it's holding me back in any way or making me feel any type of way, like I don't want anything to do with it anymore. And I just feel like it's those tough decisions that even in the moment, it was so hard. It was like literally probably the hardest thing I ever had to do, but I knew that it was like, I need to make this really difficult decision in order to get to the place that I want to be. And also,
you don't want to do two jobs 50-50. You want to do one 100%.
And that's how I've always been. Like, I've always been the type of person where I'm like, I wish I was good at one thing 100%. Like, I'm so jealous of the people that are good at one thing 100%. So I put myself in all these things a little bit. And therefore, that's why I never felt like I was 100% something, because I was always doing a bunch of little things.
But like what you're doing now and like your other job that you're going to put 100% is, it's not so off from what you're doing.
Yeah. And that's my point.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're doing two extremes and you're like, because I wish I was like good at many things. I think what you may not realize is that your new job took you there from what you started. Like, this was like your beginning path of like, what led you to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's something that I had to like come to terms with, is I was always like feeling like I couldn't let the podcast go until it was successful, like enough. Like, and to me, it's like we still actually are more successful than, I think it's like, I don't know what the figure is, but like 90% of podcasts don't make it past the third episode or something. So it's like, even just where we are today is like a huge success. Like, it actually is a hugely successful podcast.
And there's so many people who start podcasts that don't even make money from it.
Exactly. So it's like, we are really successful. I think I just like held myself to this like goal, and I just had to kind of take a step back and realize like sometimes things are successful in their own right just because they bring you to where you need to be. And like, that's what I think, at least for me, I think the podcast, like, I had to let go of the fact of like, I'm giving up on it, or like that, like I failed it or whatever. Like, you have all those thoughts, you know? And I just had to really give up that vibe and just be like, this was success for me. It brought me like a whole new perspective. It brought me so much knowledge. It brought me to where I needed to be in my life in order to get to the next level. And I think it was just like all the little working parts that just weren't working for me anymore. Whatever it was, doing too much, trying to be in too many places, the negative, like
comments,
the negativity, I guess we could say, and like how it affected me and how I felt about myself, how I felt about like how I was speaking. Like, it just felt so personal, and I felt like more and more I tried to like push it away from my personal life. But it's really hard when you start something that's so integrated into your personal life, you know?
Yeah.
It's very hard to start stopping that. And the tough thing is like, I love to make people laugh. I love to make people smile. I love to entertain. I love to be on camera. I love to like talk. Like, this is all the stuff I love to do. So in my head, I was like, well, why isn't this working? But I think sometimes it's like something could be really good and still just not work for you for whatever reason, whatever time, like, like just over time things change or whatever. And I think, it was just more so like a feeling where I was just like, this is how I was feeling. And then I just had to realize like other people are affected around me no matter what my decision is. And at least doing this way gives everyone a good shot, you know, like it allows you to go 100% how you've been trying to go, you know, and have no one being like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm working this weekend or whatever.
I remember you telling me like, Aled, there's always things you want to do, and like I feel like I'm stopping you. And it's weird because when you know someone's asset and you kind of get into this routine of like, this is what you do, this is what I do, yeah, you kind of get comfortable because we surpass that, like, okay, but you do this, but is it equal? Like, are we working the same amount? I feel like we got over that, and it was kind of just like we knew our roles. It was kind of like if you're working a 9 to 5 or whatever your job, your tasks are, you're just very clear on what you're doing and what your partner's doing. That I was like, there's no animosity. It's like everything is working so smoothly. And sometimes when things are working so smoothly and everything is just like almost like stagnant, it's like
clockwork.
It's not good for me either. You know what I mean? It's like we're so comfortable in what we're doing that are we even pushing ourselves?
Exactly.
And I feel like now being alone, I will have the opportunity to push it and to bring it to where I want to bring it to. And I think it's like, I don't know if that would have been possible if we would have continued together.
Yeah. Because the truth is, like, I was never able to give up the other things going on in my life.
Yeah.
And the podcast for you was always your main focus.
Exactly.
And I always had focus in other places, and I thought I could do it all. You know what I mean? So that's why, and like I had even told you this, like when we were speaking, but it's like, it's so hard to say this because like it sounds like I'm trying to like show you that I'm doing this for you, which I'm not. Like at the end of the day, like it was a decision for me.
I didn't realize that at the beginning. Like when I left, I was literally like, this is worse than a breakup. Like I feel like I'm like in a fight with my friend, even though we're not. I feel like I just lost like a business partner. Like there's so many things going through your mind. And I remember leaving and being like I feel like she just let go of this and she didn't like try. You know what I mean? Because that's what you think when you're in shock and like you don't really feel like it's coming, and it feels like a curveball, right? So you're just like, has she really thought about everything? Like, is she really gonna go from like giving me 100% of this? Like, that's crazy, but that's also cool. I can do what I want. Like, but like I hate her. Like, why did she tell me like this? Like, it was just like I was going back and forth. And then like a week later, I was like, no. Like, I'm actually like worried if she tells me, you know, like maybe I made the wrong decision. How weird is that?
Yeah.
Though? Like afterwards, I'm like, no. Like I cannot see this the other way now. But when it was happening, I was like, oh my God, how can she leave me in the dust? Yeah. So it's crazy when you let things simmer, how like you actually like lead with clarity after a while.
Yeah. And I think it's like, for a long time we were saying like, this is like, we need to make a change, we need to do something.
Remember,
we need to change
Like,
something.
what are we gonna change? Like, what are we doing wrong? Like,
I know.
What can we add?
And that's what I had told you. I was like, I think this is the change. Like, I think sometimes things just get, like I said, like the way that this was the stepping stone for me, like I was also the stepping stone for you. And like, you now have total control to do what you want to do, which by the way, guys, she's continuing the podcast. I don't know if that was clear, but like, it's just like,
say that,
but it's just like, I think like there's obviously a pro and a con to everything. But I think in this case, honestly, I could have never done something that would have like really ruined your life or something. So I knew deep down that there was still something that was good that was going to come out of it. My biggest fear was just that you wouldn't be able to see that, or you would think that like I did this to you. Because I know a lot of times in a decision like this, it's like, how could you do this to me? And I'm like, I felt like
I didn't really see it that way. Like, I think for me, like even when I was telling someone about it, they're like, well, if you think she's great, then you need to fight for her. And I was like, no. Like, that doesn't work that way. Like, that's not how business works. That's not how friendship works.
It's
like,
also not how a relationship
works. It's not how anything works. Like, you don't fight for something that like somebody doesn't want anymore. You have to set it free. I really think everything happens for a reason, and there was a reason it got to this stage. And like, I really feel like I know there's no good time in life, but I really feel like this was the right time.
Yeah. And also the other thing too of why it was such a rash decision is because you were about to leave on vacation. Yeah. And there was other things happening, merch decisions happening, that I was like, if I don't tell you this now, like I'm actually fucking you over, you know? So I had I had literally that one day to be like, I'm making this decision and I'm sticking to it. And it was like I'm telling you, it was the worst. Like, that was the most I ever felt like I was going through a breakup. Like, for like when we didn't speak, because we didn't speak for a couple of days, and like, in that case, it's like you kind of have the upper hand. So like, you know that when you want to talk, you can reach out to me. But
wait. I left and I was like on understanding terms. Even though I was like,
I gotta think about this.
Well, I said like, I obviously don't want you to do anything you're unhappy doing. And then I just said like, okay, like this is crazy. I wasn't expecting this. And then I left.
Yeah.
And then you sent me a message like an hour and a half later saying like, thank you for the way you took it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fuck this bitch. Like at this point I was like, I was respectful, but like, I just had so much going on. Like, is it something I did? Like, was this something that could have been worked on? But in the back of my mind, I knew like, everything's gonna be fine, Alessia. Like, just think about moments where you thought your world was ending and then like you figured it out. Like this is just gonna be another situation where you figure it out. The excitement of just knowing like everything is my decision is what I'm most excited for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, not that you were very like anal about things I wanted to do, but it's just like, no, I guess if you're not a podcaster, you don't understand that like
it's not even a podcast.
It's not just podcast, but like in yes, in the sense of like, I'm not gonna go to New York and like, I remember there was a time we were even talking about how like there were certain guests I wanted to have on, and like I was like, maybe Veronica, like the way we'll make this work is like I will go interview them. Like, how crazy, guys, to be thinking about these things. If Veronica can't make it, then like maybe you do an episode here 1 week with somebody else, and like I'll do an episode with somebody like while I'm there, even if it's not us three, to like balance it out. Like these kind of conversations are like, if you really think about it, weird if like we're both in this together.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, I think they made sense at the time. I think it's just like the reality of doing something on your own is that it's the scariest and the best thing, because it's 100% your fault if it fails, but it's also 100% your doing if it succeeds. Yeah. And that's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to have to take 100% of the blame, because it's much easier to sit here and be like, well, it's both of us who fucked it up. You know what I mean?
I think even for hate, it's like we always had each other. It was like when the hate came, it was like one week it was me, one week it was you. Sometimes it was both of us. It's like we shared that. So it's like, how dare you leave me to get hated on alone?
We share everything. We share the successes. We share the failures. It's all like we're doing this together. So it never feels like, if it would have failed, we would have just both been like, well, we tried, you know? And it doesn't feel as bad as you going out on a limb and failing yourself. Yeah. And I think that's the scariest thing, but it's also the most rewarding. Like when you know that you can do something on your own, and like when you know that you're the only person that's like getting in the way of success, makes you really like it lights a fire under your ass for sure, because it's like, this is all on me now, I better get this done. Literally, I'm no longer waiting for anyone else to help me or to do this or to do that, or waiting for someone else, because it's easy to be like, I want to do this, I'm just waiting for them. But like when it comes down to it, like when you actually get the full control, you're like, oh shit, like now I really need to do this. There's no more excuses, there's no more waiting for someone or waiting for this. Like it's all on you. And that's
sometimes
scary.
you depend on someone for the things that like you don't know how to do. And I think that's the scariest part, is certain things that Veronica was doing was not necessarily something that like I'm comfortable doing. So it's like now I just gotta like relearn certain things, teach myself, and like kind of just like self-teach myself. So that's another reason why it's like, you know, you're comfortable in what you're doing.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's all like a learning process. And I think like it's obviously a lot at the beginning, but like you learn it and then you move forward, and that's what it is, you know? I think it's just like in anything, even when it seems like it's the craziest and like the worst decision, and like, you know, like I'm not gonna lie, like however long that we've decided this, no one has known, obviously, because we didn't want anyone to know before like it came out and you guys knew. But like people would continue to come up to me and be like, I love your podcast, you guys are amazing. And the one thing that people always tell me, always is don't ever stop, don't ever give up. People always tell me that. They've told me that since the beginning. I think it's just kind of like the polite thing to say when someone's working on something, but it feels so personal. And I think like hearing that after I had made the decision, and after like we decided that I wasn't gonna continue, like hearing people say that made me feel so like
you failed.
Like I failed, and like I'm failing all these people that like are like I'm just like, they're all saying like keep going, and like I gave up. And like I just want to make it clear for myself even that like what I'm doing is not giving up. And like I know that like that's how it feels to me. Like that's something that I had to like battle with, is like I'm not giving up. I'm just like actually doing the only thing I can do in order to be successful at something. You know what I mean? And I think it was just
you're just
so
redirecting your focus.
And Guys, as you know on this podcast, we are ambitious girls and we never let a check go. So what are we doing on our sad breakup episode? Getting that check. Getting that check. And who's sponsoring this episode? Manscaped.
Yep.
Manscaped is sponsoring. So listen, whether you're going through a breakup, you're single, you're in a relationship, I'll tell you what the ladies want. And it's a smooth pair of balls. And if you only have one ball, then you want one smooth ball. But we won't talk about that. So guys, Manscaped, they're there for you even when this podcast isn't. Go check them out because they have everything you need to keep yourself smelling good, looking good, and feeling fresh.
Yes. So use our discount code ChemicalX at checkout to receive 20% off your entire order and free shipping so that you can keep funding me.
And like, I think it was just so hard hearing people say that because I was like, it just made me second guess, like, am I making the wrong decision? Even though I was so sure, hearing that is like, am I making the wrong decision? Like, am I doing something? Like, am I going to regret this? Like, all this stuff. Even though it was so strong, like, people's words can really get to you, whether they're positive or negative. Like, it gets in your mind, you know? And even though I knew deep down, this is what I want to do and I'm doing the right thing, it was just so difficult. Like, people stopping me to take pictures with me. And like, in the back of my mind, I'm just like,
But I'm
like,
leaving.
But I'm leaving. But like, this isn't continuing. And like, all these people are going to be disappointed. I'm disappointing everyone. And they're going to think that like I gave up. And I think one thing is.
What about that one comment the girl gave you? There was one comment. I thought you might want to mention it.
Yeah. So I was getting all those comments of like, don't ever stop, don't ever stop. And then one girl had stopped me and she was like, talking to me, she's like, don't ever stop, you're doing amazing. And like, she was saying, and I was like, yeah. And then she like paused. And she was like, but you know, like if you do ever stop doing it, like I know you're going to be successful in whatever you do. So like, just know like you're really great and like you're going to do amazing no matter what you do. So even if you decide not to do the podcast one day, like I know you're going to do amazing. And like her saying that was like, you know, sometimes where you feel like this is a sign from the universe, like this was sent to me, like that was that moment. Like for her to literally stop in her tracks and be like, actually, like I know that no matter what you do, you're going to be great, was like, wow. Like
that bitch can unfollow right now.
I was like, but I was like, wow, like that's what I needed to hear, you know, because I just feel like, and I really had to tell myself like, people are only saying this because that's the right thing to say. You know what I mean? Like,
well, no, she didn't have to say that.
Not her. I'm saying all the people who say like, just keep going, just keep going. Like, it's always people that probably don't even watch the podcast that are like, oh yeah, I saw your show, keep going at it. You know, like it's just the polite thing to say when someone's working on something. And I had to just like detach the fact that like, maybe they see something I don't, you know, like I had this whole thing. And then my other thing was,
I don't think people saying keep going is just like why, just because they have to say it. I think they probably just believe in it, see the potential, and know what it could become. I don't think it has to do necessarily with them just saying they need to say it. I don't think they would say it if they didn't need to.
I mean, I think that it comes from a place of like, this is good, keep going.
Yeah.
But I think it's also just like what you say when someone's working on something and it's good. It's like, keep going, you know, like, but they don't know what I know. They don't know what else, like what I'm feeling. No, but I'm saying like they just see like, oh, this is cool, you should keep doing it, you know, don't give up. But obviously like things have to be like, people could tell you all you want, don't give up on whatever, but if it's not benefiting me, if it's not making me money, if it's not making me happy, then why would I continue? You know what I mean? Like people need to see the other side as well. So there's always factors involved on why certain people don't continue certain things. You know what I mean?
But this was making money.
I'm not talking about the money thing regarding this.
Yeah.
But it's just like, things just need to like, the pros need to outweigh the cons. And I feel like in this situation, it wasn't for me. Like there was a lot of pros, but there were so many other negativities for me that it just wasn't making sense for me, you know, anymore.
Yeah. And that's okay.
But the thing is, like, I've always been known as this person. Like, people always say, like, oh, like, you work so hard. Like, how do you do it all? You work so hard. You work so hard. And, like...
I think that has an expiration date, too, though.
Yeah. And, like...
At some point, you just burn out and you're like, I can't do this all anymore. And I think it makes sense. Like, you gave up your clubbing job, too. You know, you're no longer a waitress. Like... It's not like you're just like, I'm not doing the podcast, like I'm done. You're just like burnt out. You want to put your focus all in one thing. Like I'm getting rid of the podcast. I'm getting rid of being a waitress. Like you really are, I don't know, maybe just listening to yourself for once.
And it's something that I've always wanted to do, is like say no more and be more focused. But I feel like I really took on the identity of someone who does so much. And I felt like if I wasn't doing many things, that I was like failing. Like to me, like if I wasn't constantly overworking myself, then I was failing somehow. Like I wasn't living up to what people saw me as. And even now, when I know that people, like, I don't work in clubs anymore, and like I'm not working on the weekends anymore, and like now I'm leaving the podcast, like it feels like all these people are gonna be like, oh, like I thought she worked so hard, but I guess not. That's in my head what it says.
You think people are thinking that, but no one's thinking
I
that.
know.
That's your own
It
insecurity
is,
in a way.
but it is. It's like me, like just putting this, taking that identity of like everyone sees me as this like hardworking person, and now they won't think I'm hardworking anymore. And because it's something that I like identify with so much, it makes me feel like, oh my God, like these
First of
people
all,
are
you
gonna
know you're hardworking. You don't need anyone to tell you that. And everyone can see that. And if they can't, well, like, who cares? Like, they don't know you. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really matter what other people say. It matters how you feel, what you're passionate about, and what you're doing. Like, so don't worry about how people are going to see it. You have to think about how you were feeling when you were trying to do all these things. It's not about how other people see it.
I know. It just becomes something that you think of when everyone like puts that on you.
You saying like now the pressure's on you is like fucking fact.
But like the thing is like that
I like
pressure,
that pressure though.
Yeah, but
like
like
it's scary as fuck.
It's scary as fuck, but also like in a way that pressure is on me now. Not for the podcast, but it's on me when to choose one thing is like really putting yourself to the test. You know, it's like, are you going to succeed or are you going to fail? And the fact that I've always been the type of person to do many things so that like if one fails, I still have the other one, and like I can never be fully a failure. I think for me, like having that one thing is that same pressure of like, I'm choosing one, I have nothing else, like I need to make this work. And that's how I feel. And I actually think that that's the energy that makes things successful. And I think without that energy from either of us, like, you know, you can't, it's when people have nothing else, they will work like crazy at something. And I think that's why now whatever I'm going to do is going to work like crazy, and whatever you're going to do is going to work like crazy, because we're both focusing on one thing, you know? Yeah. And it's very hard to do that when you're focused on one thing and someone is like half focused on that thing. Same thing as a relationship, you know? You can't make a relationship work if you're giving 100% and they're giving 50. It's never going to work. People have to both put 100%.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's a lot of changes. It's a lot of changes, but it's I think it's all going to be for the better. Yes. And I think what I've realized is that I've always been someone that I've struggled with making decisions and making tough decisions and worrying about how it's going to affect other people. But I think the more difficult decisions you make, the easier they get to make. And I think I've just realized that sometimes being selfish and doing something for yourself also gives the people around you a chance to also make their own decisions. And I think when you think you're doing something for someone else, like you really have to look and dig and realize like how this is affecting the other person. You know what I mean? And how this is affecting you, because no one wants to be with someone who's unhappy. No one's going to want to force you to do something you don't want to do, you know? So I just feel like I'm really in this era where I'm like, if something's not serving me, like it's gone, and I don't care about anything anymore. Like if it's a friend, if it's a person, if it's a business, like I only want to be doing the things that I want to do. And it's the hardest thing. Like it's not easy. Like it's not easy. And that's why I think a lot of people won't succeed, because they won't make the difficult decisions that you need to do. And like sometimes just doing them and fighting through it, like then you realize like, wow, I would have never got to where I needed to be if I hadn't done this. And like, who knows what's going to happen? You know what I mean? Like we don't know, but like, I just know that already making the difficult decision, like anything after this is positive, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know what I mean? Every decision is the right decision, basically. You know? Yeah. So that's my speech. That's all.
We were thinking about whether we would film this before we left on vacation or after, and Veronica's like, you know, this was my baby for the longest time, like I don't think I'm ready to talk about it. I kind of want to just like really think about what I want to say. And completely, I was like, listen, this is your last episode. However you want to go about it, you want to be just you and say it, like you can do it. You want me there, you want me not to talk, like I really wanted to give you the floor to be able to like close off. So is there anything else you'd like to say?
Oh my God, I don't know. Do you want to talk about what you're gonna do with the show or no?
No.
Okay, so then no. I think I'm just like really grateful for the podcast, for the platform, for the people watching. Like, even though we were never where we wanted to be, or like, and unfortunately, like that won't happen with us. I think it's just like, I'm so happy to see how far are you gonna cry?
No, I was yawning.
Okay.
Are you gonna cry?
Maybe. I'm just like so happy to see like how many people have supported us for so long and like been there for us. And like, even though like it hasn't been where we wanted it, I'm still like, I look and I'm like, wow, like we've done so much. I'm so like proud of like what we've achieved. And I think for me, like I've just like been really trying to like see this as a success. And I really do see it as a success. Like, I really do see it as, like, I succeeded in this. And, like...
If we were 3.5 years in and we were making no money, I would say, what the fuck are we doing, you know? And I think also Veronica being able to leave kind of makes me make all the money, which I know is, like... it's kind of like, if I wanted to at this point, I could make this my full career, which is insane to think about. I think a lot of people struggle on, like... how to find like what they want to do. And I think even just having the opportunity to fully do this full time is crazy. So just that alone and me being able to do that is insane. Yeah. You know?
Absolutely.
So
for sure. I only realized that when I left, when I was like, damn, when you put 50-50 together and it makes 100.
I think when
100% is a lot different from 50%. How much money do we
have in this account and how much are we making every month? You were doing the calculations and you're like, I was like, oh my God, is she changing her mind? Like I was having anxiety. I'm like, too bad, bitch. I went over the hardship. I went over the whole thing. Like, I'm ready for this to be all mine. I'm ready to take this to the next level. Like, you can't go back now. I love you, but no. From crying about it to like, sorry, this 100%. Is mine now.
When I saw the numbers, listen. But I do want to say, guys, though, if you like something, if you're listening to people, like, I just want you guys to understand, like, it may seem so easy listening. And
okay, wait. I don't know if this is like the weirdest thing ever, but why did the heart just unsnap? Really? It's never. It's almost like it knew we were going through a breakup. It literally just snapped open. If that wasn't a sign from the universe.
Jeez.
That's so weird.
Depressing.
I'm waiting for you to say this happens every day.
It happens every day, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Well, whatever. It never happened on the podcast.
First time on video. But no, what I was going to say is, like, I know it seems easy for us to come here. We talk. We share our lives with you. But, like, and I know we have so many people who watch and listen and love us. But if I can just say one thing, like, tell the people that you love listening to them. Because I think it gets really difficult as people who come on here and we share our lives and all this stuff. And, like, when the loudest voices in the room are negative, it gets so hard to keep going. And like when you meet people and they're like, I love it, you're like, I always go through these things where I'm like, really? Like you do? Because I'm so used to hearing people not loving it and like bashing it and picking at it. I think
that's also what you focus on though.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think the majority of people that I meet in real life give me positive responses. But I think the people in the comments and the people that are like, you know, like on TikTok and on Instagram, like it's, I want to say 80% negative. And I just think like, I know there's so many people that are like silent listeners and like loving us. And all I'm saying is that like, if you love something, like don't be shy to like let someone know that like you love hearing it. And I know people like will be shy to come up to me and be like, I didn't want to like seem weird, but it's like, you don't understand. Like every nice thing that anyone has said to me has been the reason I even kept going for a day. Like if I wasn't getting those people, as much as you shouldn't do something for anyone else, like the truth is, we all want people to like us. We all want to make people happy. And my goal was always just to make people laugh and make people smile. And I think that's probably where I got lost along the way, is where I felt like I wasn't doing that. And I felt like people were not being happy listening and they weren't laughing and they were just like hating on it. And
do you still want them to come up to you now or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
So guys, I'll take all the compliments. Yeah. Even after. But I just think
you know what I don't want to hear? I don't want to hear, I'm not listening to this podcast anymore. Veronica left. Like this podcast serves me nothing. Cause it's like, bitch, this was not my decision. This was Veronica's decision to leave. So if you don't want to be part of it and you don't want to watch, that's no problem. I'm going through it too. So for me, it's like, I don't want to be like, yeah, it's shit for me too. So for people to be like, I don't want to watch anymore. It's like, listen, I don't want that hatred too.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the truth is like either way that'll happen. There's always going to be the people who listen for you, the people who listen for me, the people who listen to both of us. But like, it's shit to hear. It's always shit to hear. But all I'm saying is that like every nice comment I've ever gotten, guys, I've never forgotten it. It's been the reason why I've continued going for as long as I've gone.
Yeah.
And
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people wouldn't do it if they weren't knowing that it was making anyone happy. So if all I can say is like, if you like something, don't be shy to tell people that you love it. And I love everyone who's listened to me. I love everyone who's followed and watched every episode. And like, it's so easy to say this here. It sounds so generic, but like I genuinely do. Like I never would be where anything that I've achieved, even just doing this, if it wasn't for the people that tune in even once, you know?
Yeah.
So just the fact that anyone has ever even listened to me once is really nice. It means a lot to me. And I'm really sad that this is like kind of the last podcast episode with the Chemical X podcast, but I hope that, you know,
I get invited on the next one.
The
at
next
some
one.
point.
No, but I just think that like it would be sad, but I know that it's only good things from here. So like, I'm not sad. I know that I've done it. I've done it, man. We've done it.
We've done it.
And now it's a change and it's going to be better and it's going to be great. And that's what it is.
You're like, are you going to sneak peek anything you're doing? I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Like, I'm still trying to figure out like what my identity is alone, how I want to intertwine this. People are like, are you going to get another guest? And I'm like, no. But do I want to be talking to a camera alone? No. So like, I'm still trying to figure out what it's going to be, how I'm going to go about this. And wow, I'm going to be talking to myself. That's crazy. I'm going to go nuts.
I'm sure you'll find someone to talk to, baby. Now I'm just a free guest.
No, I'm dead.
So much
Yeah,
easier
now
this
when
way.
you come on in my new setup.
Wow, why does it feel like... But
Don't worry, guys. I'll get her on like once a year just so she can just like life update everybody. Just so like she's still with us, but she's not getting paid.
yeah, for free. Volunteer work. Volunteer. It's crazy. All our guests came on volunteer. Yeah, that's crazy. But
I wonder how I'm gonna be though when it's like I have to do a sponsor and I'm like, this bitch is in the sea right now. Like, no, she's gonna not only do the sponsor, she's gonna do it alone. Work, bitch. Imagine. So our sponsor's this. Are you ready? And you're like, excuse me, I don't
do this
I don't do this anymore. I don't care. This is your role.
Anyways, guys,
Did we say everything?
I think I've said everything that I could think of. I won't tell you guys next week because I won't be here. But I think it's going to be great. And whatever you continue doing is going to be really good. And you guys are going to, I'm sure, love whatever's coming next, even though we're not sure what it is yet. But stay tuned.
But also write in the comments what you would like to see moving forward, because obviously there's going to be a lot of changes. But if there's something in particular you want to hear me talk about or do, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of ways this can go. So a lot of people are always like, we want a male perspective. So I'm like, look, now it's not like we're three people and one is going, yeah. I think one thing about being alone is just the idea of like it being more intimate between like me and someone else, and not like the opinion of a third person. Not saying it's annoying, but like, you know what I mean?
It's annoying.
But like sometimes it's like it's more
hard. Yeah,
it's hard and it's more personal when it's like two people.
Yeah,
and it's just like a different ambiance
for sure, 100%.
So yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
So yeah, I think that wraps it up. The final episode of the Chemical X podcast, as you guys know it.
Okay.
But only better things from here. I think I've said everything I needed to say, and just that like I love you guys and I appreciate literally every single morsel of support or feedback or love and likes and even just a follow. It's all meant the world to me, and hopefully I'm making the right decision. So, toodles.
Okay. It's done. Podcast 164 done. I'm solo now. Oh my god.
La 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 la. Wait till I give my money right.
By the way, I didn't really think about what I'm gonna say.
Okay, well,
here.
I guess maybe that'll be better.
I'm just gonna go. I'm nervous.
Oh my god.
I wasn't nervous, but now I'm nervous.
I even thought about how I was gonna let you start the intro just because it's gonna be the last time you're gonna do it. You're like, well, don't make me start crying.
What the fuck? That was so depressing.
Well,
Rude.
Okay. Do you want me to start it? No. She's like, I 100% want to do it one last time. Yeah. So then.
Okay. I feel like I can't be laughing. I'm trying to be serious.
Just be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Shut up.
Okay. Okay. Whew. That looked good for my last episode, my last footage. Okay.
I told God I'll be back in a second. Man, it's so hard not to act reckless.